Elements are the what, and the elements of art are point, line, shape, form, color, texture, value, and space. So up here at point, a point is basically just a little dot. All of these that I just drew are points, just a single point. The next one is line, and line is related to point because you start with a point and then you draw a line. A line is just a point in motion that just keeps on going. Lines can be straight like this. They can be curvy, or squiggly, or jagged. Lines can do all sorts of different things. Related to line is shape, because lines come together to form shapes. Shape is one that you're probably pretty familiar with. Here's some different kinds of shapes. There are geometric shapes, and then there are organic shapes, ones that are just kind of wonky and free-flowing. Form is related to shape. A form is a shape that either is or looks three-dimensional. Here I've drawn some examples of forms. You can see I've just added on to the shapes to make them look three-dimensional, and I've added some value. But these are forms too. I have this form of this tube going up here because it's like a three-dimensional shape. You can see it from all these different angles. So forms can be 3D too. Then the next one is color, which is one that you are probably also familiar with. Color is a really fun element because it has a lot of emotional qualities to it, and colors can mean different things to different people, and they just are kind of all over the place. Color is a really, really relative medium, but it's also super fun to use. Texture is next. Texture is when these elements come together to make it look like it feels a certain way. So maybe it feels rough or fuzzy or kind of squiggly. When you think of texture, you can think about how sandpaper feels, or how the sidewalk feels, or grass, or fur, or all these different things. And it's trying to draw things the way that they feel, so you get a visual texture. Things can also have actual texture too, like this paper is pretty smooth paper. But if I crumple it, then it has a different texture. I don't have any crumpled paper. I could crumple some, but I'm not going to right now. Then there's value. Value is just about how light or dark something is in relation to itself. So in this example here, this yellow has a really light value, while the purple has a dark value. If I didn't have any purple, this blue might be the darkest value that I have. And then space. Space has to do with how close or far apart things are. So between here is a lot of space, but between these two is a little bit of space. So you can see in here, this has space because out over here, there's nothing. There's a lot of open space in here. But then down here, there's a lot of really close spaces where things are really close together in all sorts of different areas. So these are the elements of art. They're the what. There's line, shape, texture, form, color, value, and space used within this piece here. There are also principles of art, which we're not going to focus on too much today, but I do want to tell you about them. So, these are the principles of art. These are how the elements are used. There's movement, rhythm, repetition, balance, unity, variety, harmony, emphasis, contrast, proportion, and scale. So, all the elements that are used in this piece are used according to this. There's movement with how this swirls around here, and there's movement with how this goes. There's kind of a rhythm with the repetition of this shape. There's rhythm and repetition. The little phalanges coming off of this swirly shape create some kind of a rhythm also. There's variety of color. There's unity because it's all made of paper. There's harmony. There's emphasis here because this is the biggest and it swirls, which has to do with the proportion and the scale. And there's contrast with all the different colors and these different shapes all coming together. So all of the elements, point, line, shape, form, color, texture, value, and space, are being used according to the principles. And this is true for any piece of art that you make or any piece of art that you might look at. So what we're going to do today is kind of explore the elements of art with a 3D paper sculpture. So what you'll need, I did mine on a piece of cardboard because it makes a really sturdy base. You could do it on a paper base as well, but it won't be quite as sturdy if you need to move it around or pick it up. So I do recommend cardboard. Even if you have an old cereal box that you just finished using or is in your recycling bin or something like that, even thin cardboard would work fairly well. So, the first thing I did was put a background on here. So, I'm going to pick this orange paper here for my background on my new one. I like it because it's got lines and it's got color and it's kind of got some contrast too with these, some difference in value there. So I'm going to use this. Let's see if that's going to be quite wide enough. Let's see here. There we go. So I'm just going to start out. I'm going to put glue all over my background cardboard. Get all the edges really good. And I'm gonna stick this on. Get my glue stick out of the way. Okay. Prep it really good. Okay, and then I'll flip it over and trim it. Okay. Got a nice stripy background on here now. I love stripes. I love lines. So fun. Okay, so then on this example, I started out by collaging my background to add even more shapes and textures and value and all sorts of different things there. So let's see what we have to work with. I already have some kind of smaller pieces that I've used. When you do projects, you can keep your scraps because then you have them to work with later on too. So let's see. I kind of like in these shapes here. Kind of have some interesting sort of geometric sorts of shapes. I'm gonna make this more rectangular here. Okay, let's see. I'm just kind of doing something random to start out with. I'm going to use these torn pieces as some organic shapes. I also like the texture that it adds. That's kind of fun. Let's do that. I need some more values in here, so I'm going to use this light page. I don't want to use this whole thing though. So I'm going to cut kind of a squiggly sort of shape out of here. Let's see. connect those two. That's kind of neat. Okay, what else? Let's see. Maybe you can use this little green piece. Let's just make it a square. Oop. Okay. I do kind of like this green. There, I think that'll do for a nice little background. So I'll kind of show you what we got going so far here. And I'll gotta glue this down. So let's start with the farthest back. When you glue, make sure that you have a table cover or a paper underneath it so you don't get glue on the table. Set this down here. Then my red shape on top of that. Okay. Yes. Right. There's my background. My background there, just kind of simple. So now I'm gonna start building up and creating some 3D shapes with paper. And then the last thing is kind of this big tube tree looking thing. So this is really fun and easy to make too. Let's see. I kind of want to use some more of this blue, kind of get some repetition in there of color. So I have some blue here. And let's see, how tall do I want this? That's pretty tall. So I'm going to cut this to the height I want. And this piece was actually kind of an angled cut, so you don't have to do it straight across. But I'm going to do this one straight across, just to kind of do something a little different. So let's see, about how tall do I want it? Think about there. Okay. Then I'll roll it up, and so you can see that if I rolled it to where the edges just meet, I have a really fat tube. And I don't really mind that, but I'm going to make it a little bit skinnier. So I'm going to fold it until I'm happy with how wide it is. I think that's pretty nice. So then I'm just going to kind of trim off a little bit here. I'm going to mark. So this comes over to here. So I'm going to cut about here. Get about maybe an inch or half of an inch. And that'll help determine the width of my tube. So again, I'm just going to roll this. I'm going to put glue on one edge here. Get a good amount of glue. Okay. And I'm going to roll it up. And glue it together. So I'm holding it on the inside there on either side to get it glued really good. Kind of come across, try to get it stuck down. And this is kind of stiffer paper, so it is a little persnickety. So I'm going to need to add a little more glue here. Make sure I get it right on that edge. Okay, now that that's glued, all you have to do is cut down as far as you want your little flaps to come out. So if you cut down really far, you'll have really long little flaps, and if you cut shorter, then you'll have shorter ones. So I'll just go with a variety. You can have them really wide or skinny, whatever you like. Okay, so I'm being kind of careful on my seam because I don't really want to mess that up, but I might cut just a little bit more here. Yeah, I think that'll do. That'll help it hold together. And then what you do is you just kind of carefully bend them out. Sometimes you can even kind of roll them up a little bit if you want them to be more curled. There we go. Got this kind of fun shape here. And a fun thing that you could do is you could even build a smaller one of these that's maybe just a little bit taller or just as tall, and build that down inside of it and kind of get layers of these going out too. You don't have to do just one, or you could put anything else around it. Now for the bottom, we kind of have to do the same thing that we did with this, where we cut the little flaps to hold it down, because otherwise it's really hard to glue this straight down onto here. So what we're going to do is just make some nice flaps here. And I'm not doing any exact measurements or anything, just kind of eyeballing it. And I'll just kind of turn those out like this. Okay, so now you can see that this will sit flat, and I have places where I can glue it. So I'm gonna make sure that those are folded out really good, so it'll lay really nice and flat. And I'm gonna start out by gluing just one, because I know my glue dries really fast. If your glue stays a little stickier longer, then you can do a couple at a time. But I'm gonna start out with just one. And I'm going to put it here. Okay. Then I'll go around and carefully glue some of the rest of these. Okay. And then you'd go all the way around and get all of these glued. There. So there we have that. And then the last thing is this kind of spiral shape. So I did this one as like a circle, but you could do this with any shape. So let's see. I think we need some more, I don't know, what color? I I guess I'm gonna do the pink because I just like the pink. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this one kind of more like a square. So I'm gonna start out by cutting out a square kind of shape. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to kind of make a spiral cut in the center, following the edges of my shape. So you could do this with any shape, circle, square, triangle. You can even make up your own shape, kind of just an organic, squiggly, whatever kind of shape, and this will work. As long as you can trace this outside edge with your scissors, kind of leaving a little bit of space all the way around. And if it helps you to draw a spiral on there first and then cut, you could do that, but I'm comfortable just going right in with my scissors. And I'll cut till I get really tiny. So there, and as you can already see, it's kind of popped out into this really neat spiral shape, and I can put this anywhere I want. So on this sculpture, I kind of wove it around my tall shape, but maybe this time I'll kind of put it over here. I don't know, it's kind of big. I might cut off a little bit. So I'm going to make this smaller by just trimming it like that. So now I have just a little bit less of a spiral. And I'm going to have it just right here. Yeah, that's kind of nice. So what I'll do is I know it's going to attach on the bottom here. So I'm going to glue that edge down. Kind of on that corner. So get that glued. Then oh, this might stay on here. If I just stick that corner, maybe. I'm going to stick that corner through. So I kind of connected these ones without using any glue, just by sticking the corner of this piece through the little slot that I had on my spiral. So that works there, because trying to glue this to the edge of that would be kind of difficult. But you could do it. Maybe I could kind of turn it a little bit and like glue it on there, but I like how this is like that. I could glue it there like that too, but I like how this is like that. So that's another thing you can experiment with, is how to make things stick together without having to use glue, by making slots and sticking things together through them to make a nice structure. So here's our crazy sculpture, what we use to explore the elements and principles of art. There's so many more ways, again, that you can build in 3 dimensions with paper, more than just these ways that I showed you today. You can find lots of different things online about how to build even more things with it, but you can go ahead and give these a try today if you'd like. So remember, the elements of art are used in every piece of art. They are the what you use to make art. Point, line, shape, form, color, texture, value, and space. So I hope you learned something, and I hope you have fun creating today.